What I see when I watch other people's movies. Armageddon. If there was ever a movie that could be held up as an example of what a film could be without any concessions whatsoever, when the director never has to hear the word no, then Armageddon is absolutely that movie. Filmmaking is an art medium that requires many concessions. So many, in fact, that some audiences are mystified when they discover that a film they're watching is far from the original concept that the filmmakers started with. It all comes down to how many concessions were made during the production process, and sometimes the right concessions can produce a great film, whereas too many concessions can destroy a film. Let's start with the premise. Rather than teaching NASA astronauts how to drill, the government teaches deep core drillers how to be astronauts. With an A-lister attached, the movie got a green light and a remarkably high budget for that era. Michael Bay wanted to shoot anamorphic on his previous film, The Rock, but was told no. But on this, he got what he wanted. Michael Bay wanted military and government support to legitimize the film, and NASA was like, yeah, we want in. So the production filmed in all the places any filmmaker would want to film. And then they were like, oh, you want some stealth fighters? Fine. And then they were like, hey, since you have your cameras out, let's get the Blue Angels to do a flyover. The Blue Angels weren't part of the script, and they don't even really make sense for that scene, but they make for a great shot to fade out on, so Michael Bay was just like, yeah, sure, let's film the Blue Angels flying over the tarmac. By this point in the production, he didn't even need to ask for it, they just offered it to him on the house. Despite my poking fun at it, Armageddon is a really fun movie. And for the sake of transparency, I actually got into Bay's films back in 2000 when I was a student enrolled in film school. It started out as a protest against the snobbery of the film school, but ultimately I became a pretty good study of blockbuster filmmaking. But back to the whole Michael Bay never had to hear the word no thing. This is also my theory as to why Armageddon is part of the Criterion Collection. Assuming there are purposeful criteria for certain titles to be included in the collection, to have a summer blockbuster that was produced almost entirely without the director never having to make concessions is actually something worth studying and therefore worth including in a collection devoted to the curation of a library of different films from around the world that offer different perspectives on filmmaking. It stands to reason that a summer blockbuster would, at some point, be given a spine. For those interested, Armageddon is spine 40 of the Criterion Collection. It must have done really well financially because shortly after that, they released The Rock as spine 108. Of course, this is supposed to be about cinema theory, so beyond the obvious cash cow that both films were for the Criterion Collection, at some point or another, I will do a video on The Rock and why I think it's part of the Criterion Collection beyond money. Until then,
we bring in the world's best deep core driller.